Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another live stream. Hope everybody's having a good weekend. Hearing it? A little quiet for me. Get the sound going. All right. So hope everybody's had a good weekend, like I said, and yeah, we're just gonna have some fun today. Chat about some guitars, and there's not really much to update. Hey Ben, how you doing? Good to see you again. Yeah, I've been feeling a little bit under the weather this week, so I haven't really had too much time, or haven't been able to get to the next video. But I started working on it a little bit today, feeling a little better. So we got since there's been a little bit of a delay, we'll go over it. We'll go over some of the stuff I'm going to go over anyway. Um, on the 2-beat riffs, because we did the Rockabilly riffs thing before, and that was for more swing and eighths. And this is going to be the country 2-beat. And then, of course, you have your straight rock, which I'll do a video on as well. But that's going to be a lot of the riffs that you can play with the swing can also work with the straight rock. The only thing you really have to be somewhat conscious of is the some of the passing tones. So doing something like this, right? Or whatever key you're doing. Those little passing notes within a scale. They can work in straight rock, but I don't know, to me it can sound a little clunky. It can work, especially like a build up into a solo, but a lot of the rockabilly stuff, especially if it's just 1-4-5, the stuff that really brings it home is just that stuff like that, right? All right. One question. What is it? Um yeah, so when you're swinging, it's a little easier to you can get away with murder, kind of. At least it feels that way sometimes. You can just kind of do whatever you want to do and then throw in these chords. Even play chromatically. You hear this. It's just the same chord down, if you've heard this riff before. You go to the 5, you go to the 4. And that's just the inversion of the 6-9 chord here. And then playing up here. But it's kind of like going 1, 5, 1, 1, 1. And then when we go to the 5, it's just chromatic all the way down. Well, okay. So I'm working on one difficult piece, the SRV version of Stevie Ray Vaughan version of Texas Flood. How do you learn a song to cover? I've worked on this for about 10 days and have about 6 pages of it in memory. Well, how I do it, basically, if I take whatever song I'm trying to learn, um, if it's complicated, I mean, the first thing I do is I figure out, okay, what's the chord progression? So most songs, not all, but most songs have a circular pattern where you'll figure out what that is and then get that in your head and apply the numbers to it. So you're not thinking of the song in terms of what chords are being played as opposed to what the progression is. I used to think of songs in terms of chords instead of progressions. And then once I started understanding, um, hey, this is a 2-6-5-1, or this is a 3-6-2-5-1, or whatever the progression is. Then once I started understanding that, then I had less. There was just less memory going on. I was just thinking of, oh, this is the progression, and this is where we are in the song. So then that's compartmentalized, and I don't have to worry about that. And then, of course, if you get into more advanced song where you have all these extra, well, I won't get off on that tangent with the substitutions. But then when we get into the solo part, like memorizing the specific solos, you have usually riffs, might have riffs or stuff, licks and stuff in between of vocals and stuff like that. So that's one thing you worry about. And then the solos are their own separate entities. And I would just focus on that. And I just depend. I don't know how long. I know I've heard the tune, but I can't remember exactly how long the solos go around. Whether it's 4 or 5 times, and just try to play it. Especially if it's 12 bars, then I would take it and say, okay, this is one time around, second time around, third time around, fourth, however many times around it goes, and memorize them in. Think of it as like this is the first part of the solo, the second part of the solo, and the third part and the fourth part, and so on and so forth. 8 times, jeez, yeah. um, yeah, that's a bit. That's a lot. So in that case, if it's all one solo, or is there a second solo? Sometimes songs will go 4 and 4, and they'll break it up with a verse or chorus or something in between, or it'll be um, you know, or it's usually solos are fairly short, like 2 to 3 times, usually 2 times around, one in the middle after a couple, and then after a couple verses, and then they'll do a verse chorus go into a bridge or something, and then B section, and then back into a solo or something like that. So there's a huge intro too. Okay. So yeah, again, if it's 12 bar, I would definitely look at, this is the first time around, and I know that I got to do this, and I'd have to see exactly, where it's going, but I usually try to focus on, fingerboard memory too. I call it fretboard memory, where okay, I'm playing all this stuff up here in the 12th position, and then I'm playing stuff over here in this 7th position, and then the open, I'm assuming it's in E. Did you say it was E? I don't know. I just assumed, but it may not be. Um, Probably because I was working on my video in E. uh, Hold on a second. Yeah, it's probably. I mean, I know. Like I've been working on what was the other Stevie Ray Vaughan tune, Scuttle Button, and I got to get back to it. I learned the riff and everything, but I never really memorized the solos. I mean, the one of the things with the Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff is that a lot of it is it's classic blues riffs, when rock and roll riffs, and it's just a lot of memorization of notes. And the best way to memorize it is to just also, listen to the song over and over and over and over again, almost to the point where you can um sing along to the solo. I know that sounds silly, but you're you can almost you know exactly where it's going to go because you're just kind of humming along to the solo, not worrying about the playing, but you know where the melody notes, the notes are going. And then that's in your head. And then when you go to play it, I would just focus on the first 12 bars. That's how I do it. And I say, okay, I've got that. And then I focus on the next 12 bars and the next, and so on and so forth. That's 8 times. So I do that. And then once you've kind of played through it all, as far as the memory goes, then I go backwards. I go back to the end of the solo and I start at the eighth time around and then go back to the seventh time around and then play the sixth and fifth and play the solo. It's not backwards, but you're playing it the last 8 bars first and then the seventh eight. And so you kind of really know where each structure is going. Because a lot of the times, at least for me, I'll learn a solo and I'll learn the first section of it really well, and then the next section of it's weak because I practiced more and focused more on that first section. My music teacher always used to tell me that the way you're supposed to practice is that you play it straight through, and if you make a mistake, you go back to the very beginning and start again. The only problem with that is that if there's a trouble spot, you need to stop and work on that trouble spot, wherever that is, especially if it's something mechanical you're trying to get. Then, because if you always keep going back, then you're going to have the first half of the solo really well done, but then the next half is going to not be so great because you never got there, right? So, the memorization part is just, again, it's repetition, listening to it, and knowing where the solos, um, what's going to happen next. Another thing you can do is, I don't really do this for soloing, but I do it for vocals, and it might work for soloing too. I've never really tried it. To be fair, I've never really learned a song that's 8 bars 8 times around on a 12 bar progression. If I go that long soloing in a single tune, it's usually improvised. So I'd probably say the longest solo I've ever learned note for note would be uh, I know it's cheesy, but Stairway to Heaven when I was first starting out, right? Um, and then there was, what else did I learn? Oh, there's one song that I'm actually learning right. Well, I already know it, but it took me a little while to learn was the solo to Bodhisattva, Steely Dan, and that one took a little bit of time, and that was just listening to it over and over and over again, and finally able to get and get all those I don't remember it anymore. Something like that. Something like that. Um, and that one has like a weird chord progression too because it goes to the 1 and the 4, and then it goes to the sharp 5 as a major 7, and then here back to the 1. So yeah, that would be my recommendation for getting just memorizing solos is what I would do with the vocals is I would play the song, listen to the verse, and then when the next verse is about ready to come up, I would stop the recording, the song, and try to remember what's the next vocal line without listening to it. And if I knew I had a trouble spot, like like it'd go into a solo and then the next verse would come back or the bridge would come in. To remember the lyrics, I would just stop the recording and see if I could remember it without the recording helping me. And then of course playing the tune and getting the lyrics down, run them in your head really really fast. Sometimes the way I like to practice so I can remember structure is I just practice by myself without metronomes or any recording and just practice the song really really fast. Whatever song I'm trying to play, right? And so if I'm playing, I'm trying to think if there was a song I was learning the other day, just trying to get it in my head because we hadn't played it in a while. Oh yeah, it was like stuff like when we started doing Sea of Love, I was just yeah, play it real fast. You know, just to get the progression in your head. Yeah, separating the harder riffs too. Yeah, if it's something mechanical, I would go through the solo and find out where those spots are, grab those spots, and just focus on those until you get those and get them up to speed individually. Then add them into the rest of the solo. Um, I remember working on there was a what was it? Oh, it was just when I was starting out learning like rockabilly stuff and finding solos I like to learn note for note that would just help playing and was the Dirty Boogie on the Setzer album and I could get that no problem. And then when it came to the next part, I would stumble because it goes so. And that little part, it's kind of a rake, dramatic up, dramatic, and then back to the scale. He does that quite often. Actually, he'll dramatically go to a note to fill in the time, the rhythm, and then back to a B flat scale, a G minor, B flat, and then the rest of it's easy. And then you do this little, which is just Mixolydian, D Mixolydian, right? It was where melodic minor. And that's just walking bass line, dramatically, back down to the third. That's all that is. And yeah, it would take mechanically, it would just take me forever. So it would just slow this way down. Oh, thank you very much, Ben, for the $24.99. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm glad I could be of help anytime. So I have, um, let's see. So I'm working on this new video, and since I haven't got it out yet, I figured I'd go over what I'm going to talk about in the video here. But I'm just going to go over the explanation. That's funny. It's a Texas puddle, but it'll get there for sure. Like I said, just takes time to play to repetition over and over again, and um, building up the speed is sometimes it's not in the, you think it's in the fretting hand, and if check your picking hand too, because sometimes it's the way, maybe just a simple thing like switching the beginning of a riff from an upstroke, from a downstroke to an upstroke, could help clean up the riff. So for example, um, playing something like this, right? If you start that with a downstroke to pick every single note, it's very staccato. It doesn't sound very smooth. And but if you start it with an upstroke, because that the beginning beat is going to sound is an upbeat, which is typically the way, especially if you're reading for guitar or you're seeing a chart for the first time. Um, typically, downbeats are downstrokes, upbeats are upstrokes of the pick, and that's the easiest way to think of it. So I usually like to slide up. You don't have to. I'm usually sliding about, two or three frets down. And that first one's a hammer on. And everything else is individual. And you can play it even faster just by making one note a hammer on. Now, of course, all the hammer-ons on the pull-offs are going to be listed in a tablature, but for the picking direction is usually not. So sometimes it is, but most of the time it's not. And so you want to just kind of be aware of that, because then you have the economy picking too, where instead of going alternating between each note, you can. It depends on the riff. You might want to keep going down between each string and think about your picking patterns as well. And you might find something that's going to be smoother. There's this riff. I'm sure you've heard this. And that's one where it's easier to start with an upstroke than a downstroke. I can't. I have to start on an upstroke to get it. So that's something um I don't know where I figured that out, but just was very frustrated at trying to get, I think it was that riff, and I couldn't get it. And I said, let me try flipping the pick pattern around. And also, there was a book actually, which I got, I don't know what, I still have it. It was a music reading for guitar, sheet music, not tablature, and how to sight read. I think it was sight reading for guitar. And it shows you, well, depending on what key you're playing in, will depend on where you're going to play the notes, where you're going to play the scales. And for a basic understanding, that's where I learned downbeat, downstroke, upbeat, upstroke, because it's easier to count that way. When you're counting in a chart and you're going and you're counting the notes that are coming, it's easier to play up when when it's a syncopated rhythm, um, especially with a lot of this stuff. At least for me, guitar reading stuff is primarily going to swing for the most part. Usually straight rock stuff, you don't need to read the chart. The songs aren't complicated enough to justify it. But the unless it's maybe, I don't know, acid jazz or funk, acid funk jazz or something like that. Um, that stuff can get a little crazy. Uh, but typically with guitar charts, it's just gonna be chords anyway. It's unless it's a doubling line. That's usually what happens. Is there will be you'll be playing a line with the horns or with the keyboard or something like that, and that's where you'll be reading those notes, you know, to double the line, and so you'll be able to kind of play off of those guys and get it and practicing too. Occasionally, I've run into a chart or two where I think it's a doubling line, and all of a sudden, hey, nobody's playing, it's just me, and it's a little intimidating, but yeah, and it wasn't. It's nothing anything complicated. I've never run across anything where it's more than one note at a time, so you don't get clusters of chords or double stops written out in notation. It doesn't usually happen. I think most arrangers are fairly aware of the fact that guitar players don't typically read sheet music, and making it more complicated is not necessary. But it's an interesting skill to have. I like it. Not that I use it all that much. Um, it's great for me for arranging, for my own songs and for writing for horn sections. Like the album we did, uh, 5 years ago now, has all the horns on the album, and I wrote all the arrangements and all the orchestration for it. So it comes in handy when I need it. But I like it sometimes, especially even reading tablature. Sometimes the tablature will be off. Um, Either be completely the wrong note, or they'll put the um, they'll put this they'll put a something that can be played way easier. Well, an example, there's in I think it's is it this? Oh yeah, there's a section in I forget what song it is, and it was written like this, way up here on the 15th, 17th fret, and well, it can also be played like this on a Gretsch or anything with a single cutaway. That's not the most comfortable thing in the world, but it's also right there. So why write it up there? So if something feels awkward in a piece of tablature, don't be afraid to look at the notation and say, is that the right note? And also, is there an easier way to play this? The tablature may not be 100% correct. Um, there's always the option too, if it's available, to find a video recording of the actual artist playing it and see where they did it. And sometimes you'll see it's completely different, and a lot of the times these guys will be playing completely different solos from what's transcribed anyway. Sometimes if it is the same, they might play it a little bit different. What was the other one? Yeah, that was another one too. It was it was way up here. It was this. I remember this one. This was. Oh, I think my guitar's off. Yeah, it was this. Why play it up there? And the other one was this, like that riff. I don't remember how that sold. It was written way up there. Yeah, if you were down here, play it. That's fine. But you don't have to go way up here. It's right here. So those are things I've noticed occasionally, where You can just where the notation can come in handy. You're like, oh well, the note is there. Of course, you can just see like on the fingerboard and go, okay, well, let me figure out an easier way to play it. Sometimes you have to get way up there, obviously, when you're getting up to anything on the E string past um, essentially the 15th fret. You're going to be playing it up there. Of course, for rockabilly and blues and stuff like that, it's not that common, but you'll see it more if you're playing with a Strat or a Tele. Although my Tele only has 21 frets, so I don't know. Let's see. So, yeah, I'll go over a little bit of what I'm going to talk about for the next video. So I recorded the backing track for it today. Um, got the bass done. I got the drums ready to go. And now I just need to record the narration part and then explain what I'm going to be talking about. So it's gonna be a 2-beat song. Around like I have it. I'm gonna write it out in 4/4, even though it should be 2 cut time. And the reason for that is because the measures are gonna go by so fast, 1, 2, and then they're gonna flip so fast on the screen that it's gonna be hard to really see what's going on. So I'm gonna put them in 4/4 so I can get more in a measure. So it'll be a count instead of one. You can still count it like that, but it's gonna be written as though 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, as opposed to 1, 2, 1, 2. Just because the measures would flash a little bit slower and it'll be on the screen a little bit longer. And you'll get more of the riff. So this is gonna be around 250 tempo wise if you're counting 4/4 out there, and kind of a mystery train tempo. So I'll start off with this riff here, and these riffs will be able to be played in any key, but I am going to do this video in E, since I think the last one in A, and so I'll do the other half of Rockabilly, which is the key of E. So here's the first riff, just like that. Now I'm using open strings, but you can play it without doing that. And that's where you could play it in any key. So you could play it in D, which I'll demonstrate too in the video. And that's picked, picking that with my fingers, but you can pick that with your pick. I'm kind of chicken picking that a little bit. And a lot of the solo is going to be, or the riffs are going to be, a combination of country guitar influence and pedal steel type riffs, chicken picking, tucking the pickup, and that sort of thing. You don't have to do this part. I know not everybody does that, tucking the pickup kind of thing. I like it because I like the way the thumb sounded as opposed to doing this. And when I saw Setzer do it, and I just tried it for several years, I didn't even bother. I just would play it like that. Or but it's a little too defined with the pick. And I tried using a thumb pick way back, and I never got it. I finally can play with it now, but that was something that I had to really just. It took me about 2 years of just not doing anything else on the guitar, and I wasn't really playing guitar live that much, so I was playing bass primarily. When I did practice, I just practiced with the thumb pick. That's all I did. And it took me about 2 years of just playing measure by measure, half a measure, sometimes just 2 or 3 notes at a time, playing Oh by Jingo, Mr. Sandman, whatever, um, Chet Atkins type thing, and practicing just standard the Cannonball Rag and all that, and would just use the thumb pick to get used to that. So, so you don't really have to do that for these riffs, but I will be doing it a little bit just because it's comfortable for me. But so that's the first one, and then I go up to back up here to the E, and you can play off of this E chord, and you're not just playing major. You play double stops up here, right? Right. um, but you can play the minor, and you just bend that kind of a quarter tone, or bending that minor third up to the third there. So you're bending both notes a little bit to the root, kind of bouncing back and forth. You hear that on Chuck Berry stuff, right? The Catch Me If You Can, right? So you can play around with just picking with your fingers here, and you've got your seventh, your flat seven, and your root, and your fifth there, bouncing back and forth between the E and the flat seven, E and the D, and that would be the second riff. And then here's one that I really like. You can do this stuff in any key. You can transpose it. I just chose an E. You're bending up to the 1 and the 5. You're doing a full bend. And that's always a fun riff, right? Start a solo off like that. Really sounds great. Then kind of a scale rundown. Bending up between the minor third and the third. Because you can play the major scale here and also here. The major pentatonic, right? I'm just playing off of the set instead of playing the pentatonic. I'm playing the D there because I'm playing off of the flat sevens and the minor thirds to give it more of that bluesy or country blues type sound. Then I do the bebop scale does work very well in the country type stuff. You go to the A, we go to the 4. It's just instead of hitting the major 7, again you're playing off the flat 7. That flat 7 really, really, to me, it really defines that country, especially the country blues sound, which is, I guess, more of what I go for when I play country solos. Because if you can do something like a descending line with a major 7, like you can do, this would be without the 7s. Something like that would be more just major. No passing tones, major scale, just a major 7 instead of a flat 7, no minor thirds or anything. Then, after that, just playing off of that scale, you go to this pedal steel type bend, and you're up here playing off of this A chord, way up here, just an octave higher. And again, you're playing off of the major pentatonic. You bend, so that's the riff. You could end a song like that if you wanted. And having all the notes kind of ringing out, so it's important to chimey ring. All the notes are kind of ringing on top of each other. And then we're back down on the E. Especially in this faster tempo, pull-offs and hammer-ons too, but especially with the pull-offs, really give it that smooth flow. Playing off of the major pentatonic again. And then I'm going to throw in this little thing just for fun. That can be played in almost any beat, any riff, any tempo, or any type of feel, whether it's 2-beat, straight rock, swing, whatever. And you can do that in any key. If you're an A, you just have to keep that barred. Oh, heard something outside. So then I go up to, I think that's where oh yes, there's another back on the E. You can go here on the 5th fret, and just like we bend up here, you bend up here. You're just putting the 5th on the top and the 3rd on the bottom, as opposed to here you're bending from the 4 to the 5 and putting the 1 and the 5. So here you're just doing. So the trick with any of those bends, of course, is to bend, usually pick a note that's in the chord, whether it's the 1, 3, or the 5, and then you pick another note that's usually a whole step below the note you're bending to. And so if you want to bend to the 3rd, in this case, bending to the 5, you could bend to the 1, another one, 3rd on the top, 1 here. Yeah, so that's pretty much all those country type bends. So you can do these pre-bends here, where you're on the 3rd, you bend the 3rd up, you can do a pull off there, because otherwise you're coming down on the 9. So I'll just do this riff here, and you can play off of that right here. It's all in the E chord, the 6th note. I'm talking about scale degrees, by the way. So that's that riff. You can play a lot of fun, right? And I'm just going to be showing you these different riffs, and change the rhythm around to. That's how I would come up with different riffs. Some of these I've pulled from different things I've learned, like that, of course. That's and also to demonstrate and show that, not everything you play is going to be 100% original, and you can grab these different riffs that you've heard from various artists over the years and use it to fill in a little space and add in to get to your next part of the solo, a transitional riff, if you will. And then we go to the 5, and I'm doing that bend again. Again, you don't have to just play these bends over the 1. You can play them over the 4, the 5, the 6, whatever. You can play off of that. It's like playing that. The major pentatonic again, but you're keeping your little finger on the 5 and the 1 of the B chord, so you can kind of, it's droning on the top of the chord, and these, notes are being played underneath it. And then, again, go back to the A or the major pentatonic. That's the riff. I'm kind of combining two little riffs there. There's that. And so that's the major version of it over A. And if you were over A, you could play that same pattern, that same position over here, and it becomes more of the minor blues version. Something like that. You want to come back to the root. And the root is there. So if you were in C, you would play that there. You want that major. But if you're in A and you want that blues sound, you can play around with those same notes, but you're playing around with the 1, the flat 7. Or here, you're doing the 6, the 5, bending up to the 6 from the 2. And then this trick, that is taking the 7th, whatever chord, this will be the chord, A, B, C, D, whatever, this bar chord form. And you play your index finger here, you put your little finger on the 7th of the chord. So it's always going to be 4 frets above your chord. Like your octaves up there, flat 7's down there on the D string. And what you do is you just strike the, however you want to start it, but I usually strike the chord, the 1 and the 3, pull off. In this case, it happens to be the same note. You can do that anywhere. You can do it up here in G. And run it all the way down. Whatever you want to do. And that's a riff you can just move around in any key, kind of like playing those little riffs like that can go and be played in any key. Let's see. I had a question. Would you say minor, major pentatonic, blues, and Mixolydian covers, but 90% really play in rock? Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'd say that pretty much covers, at least 95%. Maybe more. It's really, at that point, I'd say that you'd be getting into jazz scales a little bit. Which is not really jazz scales. It's more of like playing off of the accidentals and substitutions by adding in passing tones. There's multiple ways to think of it. You can go crazy and try to memorize 100 scales, which I think is ridiculous because that's just it's too much. It's too much to remember. Instead of that, just think of scale degrees and intervals and the notes that are in the chords that you're playing. And then you don't have to worry about, oh, well, I've switched to this chord and this chord's outside of the key. What scale do I have to play? Um, if you take this chord like, oh, this one, I saw an example of that. This is like a B major 7 sharp 5 or flat. Yeah, B major 7 sharp 5. Yeah. And that you're going to be playing, well, what scale would you play over a chord like that? Well, um, you would play altered Lydian scale, and that is, or augmented Lydian if you want to. It's, oh, both names are correct because those notes are going to be in that chord and they're in that scale. But if you just know the notes that are in the chords, you can just add those notes to your mode. And if you're playing altered Lydian anyway, then it's going to be Lydian. It's altered Lydian because you're raising the 1, or in this case, the 5, but it's still Lydian mode. So Lydian would be 4, and that would mean that you're in the key of F. So the scale that you play implies is not just over the chord; it also implies the key that you're playing in. Um, so it sounds very complicated, but if you just think about, oh, okay, well, I'm playing a 4 chord, and think about what key you're in, and just think about your modes, and then if I know that a sharp 5 chord is coming up, right, and then I know, okay, the 5th is raised, the fifth of the 5th of B flat is raised, so I know that I have to play whatever scale or mode when I'm playing in Lydian mode, because I'm in F, that I know that the 5 of that scale has to be raised. That's the way I think about it, as opposed to trying to think about memorize all of these scales and memorize the pattern of Lydian mode and altered Lydian mode and this and melodic minor. It's like, because you can, I guess it's sort of useful, but it's just easier to think about the terms of modes and then alter the scales when needed, when the chords are there. Because if you're just playing something major and you start playing sharp 5s in your scale that's not being used as a passing tone or a melodic tone, it's not going to sound the greatest. So there's no reason to add it. So if I'm playing, want to run up to a scale, yeah, I'm playing it, but I'm also playing the 6th and the 7th and everything else. Or you can play the sharp 5 because when you go to the 4 chord, it transitions. It becomes the minor third of the 4. You come back down on that. So as chords are changing, scales are changing, everything's changing. And instead of thinking it in terms of like, okay, I got to play this scale, this scale, this scale, I don't know. To me, that just takes up way too much it's too much brain work. Just make it, just think about the notes and memorize the notes in your chords. And that'll also help you with chord extensions and finding different substitutions that you can create as well, and that all kind of relates to each other. Individual scales beyond your major, minor, the stuff you mentioned, the pentatonic blues, and the mixolydian again is just a mode. It's just the 5 mode of whatever key you're in. So if you're playing in a minor key and you play the 5 mode, you're playing an altered mixolydian, because if the 5, typically in minor songs, the 5 is still dominant. It's not minor. It's not a minor 7. So it's think of a lot of songs you hear. It's all minor. But you get to the 5 and it's still the dominant 5 of E. Do the sharp 5 thing. Pipeline is a perfect example. Well, that's perfect fifths for the most part, but yeah, it's essentially the same idea. And so you're technically playing an altered Mixolydian, but why think of it like that? You're just playing Mixolydian because you know the notes that are in the chords. Anyway, yeah. So that little riff I was talking about. That's that little trick, and then that's pretty much it of the video. And then we go back to the E. I can't remember what I did at the very end. We went over that riff. Then there's this one here. Now I'm playing this with an open strings, but you can do it in any key again. I've gone over that riff before, but do it with a pick. That. And that would be the same. Right? Cool. Oh, thanks, Joel, for the $5. Appreciate it. I loved all those little country licks. Gonna have to go back and try and pick up a few. Awesome. Yeah, well, it'll be you can go back and look at the live stream. Like I said, this is gonna actually be a video. That's the next video that I'm working on. So that will have the tablature as well, and explaining it more concisely than what I'm doing right now. But this just live. So so yeah, that little riff can be played in any key. That's A. But and the great thing about that riff, that little lick that I'm gonna do it slow. Staying on the 1 the whole time, but you don't have to. You can go to the 4, right to the 4, dramatically. You can do that again in any key. So if there's a song, I used it in when I used to play a song by Graham Parsons called Ooh, Las Vegas, and it has this riff that it kind of right, and that's the opening riff, and in between the vocals, there'd be a little bit of a break where it'd stay on the E. Ooh, Las Vegas, right? And if you've heard the tune, and in between that little 2 bars of nothing going on, you've got to throw something in there. And I always, if you're going into another chord, it's nice to have the riff lead into the next chord, as opposed to just playing some riff and a scale, and then it goes into the you're bending to a note that happens to be in the next chord, which if you're playing most of these scales, you're a good chance that whatever note you're going to land on is probably going to be in that chord. So if you're playing over, just staying on the root, if you're at A, right, all of a sudden that the A becomes the 5 of D, right? So, but you can go up to the 4, and you can go up right to the root of the next chord, which is, always works. Going to the 3rd or the 5th, going up to the 3rd especially, that's definitely, that can be a little risky. Make sure you're just landing on the right timing, because otherwise it's the 6th, especially if something's more country blues oriented. Some of those more melodic notes, like the 6th and the third, the major 7th, um, and the 4s too, can be the 4, 6, and major 7 are the notes you kind of have to be careful um, with a lot of this stuff. And then of course any passing tones as well. So anything else outside of the scale. Uh, and then when you're playing a song that's slower, or play in a band, I used to play in a band, play guitar, and occasionally, where some of it would be blues and country, some of it would be singer songwriter stuff, and with that stuff, it's not the country blues scales don't necessarily work. It's stick more to the major scales, and watch your minor thirds, and watch your flat sevenths and stuff like that, and do more of your simpler. And I always found that this scale, that major scale around that form, the C form, to work really well when improvising. Because you don't want to be thinking about things too much when you're when you're improvising. You want to more feel it and play whatever's really comfortable. And that, to me, that works out for me, for that type of stuff. But yeah, but for the country blues stuff, I would always play right in between the 4 to the I'm sorry, the 1 to the 4. Right into the rhythm, right? You can, right? And if you're playing an A, um, you can just, going back to the 1, um, and play way up there. If you're playing that country stuff, and just playing those little pedal steel bends in unison, the country bends and things will work really well, and it makes it sound sonically like what it should sound like, more country and less rock, I guess. um, yeah, it's always fun, and that's why I like rockabilly, which I've said many times before, is that you don't have to play a specific genre and be stuck. I've always found that with rockabilly, I can throw in some country riffs, even if it's just. Especially, that's why I love the shuffles and the swings, because I can throw in a country riff like that, and then right into a jazz riff, right into some chord melody, right into some finger picking, and just jumble it all up and move and go all over the place. And it's so freeing to be able to do that. Whether you're writing a solo and you're executing it the same each time, or making it up as you go along, and it just opens up so many doors, um, improvisation wise. Where I feel like with the other stuff, more uh, just kind of medium tempo, slower rock type stuff, you're somewhat limited in where you can go soloing wise, and so it's just more fun for me. I don't, not there's anything wrong with the other stuff, or it's not great. It's just I like that personal freedom to be able to do all sorts of things. Obviously, you can take it to the extreme and be a little too ridiculous with it, and you're playing something that's supposed to sound like a classy swing tune, and then you add in some twangy guitar stuff. But it still works. To me it does anyway. It can sound really cool. Obviously, Setzer did it all the time with the orchestra. Um, yeah, it's just really the awkward thing for me is the more straight, medium tempo rock tunes. Not so much the faster ones, but the medium tempo ones. Um, when you start playing a lot of the passing tones and the jazzier type stuff, and the extended chord stuff does not work, at least to me. So you're playing like an A9 when it should be just an A, right? Or you want to be careful with some of those substitutions. Um, yeah. So, think what else? What else we got here today? Um, Noodling around. um, yeah. The other thing, I got another video too. I'd mentioned it last stream about a little gear review. The people at Joyo, is a company that makes a bunch of different types of music gear, asked me to do a little review on one of their um, devices, and it's a in-ear wireless system. So it works just like a wireless Bluetooth guitar setup, except that it's for your singing or for guitar playing too. If you have your guitar amp mic'd or whatever, or if you happen to have an output on an amplifier. I don't really know of any tube amplifiers that have an output. Maybe some of the new ones do. I don't really have a lot of experience with newer amps. I have a Hot Rod Deluxe. It doesn't have an output as far as I know. Um, but anyway, you can output from the board or whatever, and you can hear your guitar if you happen to be in a situation where you have to play really quiet. You can't hear your guitar, or it's mic'd through the system or something like that. And it does work. It works pretty well. I mean, I've never used one live. I used one years ago, probably 20 years ago now, and I that was more for singing. I personally didn't like it back then. Um, this sounded pretty good because I could control it with a little volume right on the side. I could just bring it bring it right down if it was too loud. That one, the old one, if I remember, I think you could only control it from the main device or something, or maybe it must have had some sort of controller. I don't know. It was a long time ago. I just remember it being very weird and obtrusive, trying to perform with something like that on. It's difficult for me even to use earplugs, even though I probably should when I play. But I don't really listen to loud music or anything on my off time, and we don't play super loud when we play. We're loud, but we're not, you know, death death metal loud or anything. um, so, and my amplifier now, I use a. Anyway, I made a video on that little review, which the video's done. It's just I want to get this other riff video completed so that way I can release them both at the same time, or release the gear video and then the next couple of days. So um, it's not just that video that's coming out. Um, but yeah, with my amplifier now, I was using these attenuator hot plates for a while, and they're great. These THD hot plates, if you have a separate cab, um, um, head and cab. If you have a combo, it doesn't work. You have to use something different. but just using an old style baffle with these sound absorber anti-sound reflectors or whatever the studio foam. Put that on one side of it. I put a little TeleDynes logo on the front of it, set it up against the amplifier, and then if I want it a little bit louder, I just scoot the thing over, and it lets a little bit more sound out. And that way I don't have to worry about being too loud, and I can still crank the amplifier and get that tube saturation. Hey, Gizmodus, how you doing? Yeah, so that'll be the next two videos. Like I said, the other one's completely done. And better now. Not feeling well. I don't I don't know about you, but I hadn't been feeling good all this week. So everything kind of got pushed back and been feeling under the weather, but starting to get back to normal. So let's see what else we got here. So a lot of what other stuff I've been working on. We got obviously I've got some more new originals and stuff I've been working on, but they're not quite ready to bring out. But this time of year, playing some of the Rockabilly tunes. I know some people like it, some people don't, but I like it. So, and the rest of the guys in the band like it too. Is this time of year, not November, because we don't actually have any gigs this month, which is unusual, but just kind of worked out that way. We've got some holiday parties and things coming up, so we play a couple of Christmas tunes, and we try to rockabilly them up. And the reason why I bring it up is because some of the tunes that I'm playing are they whether you like the music or not, the the chord progressions for some of this stuff is really quite intricate, and especially the older, especially the 40s, 30s, and 40s stuff, and that's one of the two yeah, rocking around the Christmas tree, and that's a simpler tune. Um, and that's one I tossed around doing. I wasn't sure about whether I would want to do that one or not, but we do Jingle Bell Rock because it's easy. Everybody kind of knows it. Which is that actually has a more interesting chord progression than you think. Um, that one's got I mean, I kind of add a little more to it, so everybody knows it starts on it starts on the D, and it's got the riff right. And what I do is I run around and I play this instead of just staying on the D. You can almost hear it right as you're playing it, and a diminished chord in there. Oh my god! And then it goes this turnaround. It goes 1 diminished, 2 5, 4 minor 4 to the 2 back to the 1. That's the bridge part. But that first verse, when it turns around, when it goes to the 5, it goes to a sharp 5. A lot of songs back then did that. It leads right into, because you're leading, voice leading. We were talking about last week a little bit. where you go from the 5 and the 5 of the 5, in this case E. When you go to a sharp 5, that's your F, and that leads right into your D. Of course, you can play diminished too, right? All right. Ah, Opa. Hello, Andre. How you doing? Thanks for joining. So that, let me see that. Let me see if there's any other complicated. I mean, that's pretty much the progression. But anyway, I was talking about playing off of notes earlier. So when you play that solo, it goes to the sharp 5. You got to make sure that you play that, you're altering your mixolydian. The one tune I was working on that was "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas" and the Christmas song, "The Chestnuts Roasting on an Open Fire." Those two songs have a lot of chord progressions in them, and it goes back to just standard chord substitution stuff, which you can tell that it was written in the age of jazz because it really, all of the standard tools were used in writing those songs, where you can use the 2/5 of any 5 can be preceded by its own 2/5. That makes sense. So when you're going to the 5 chord, you can go right back to that, right? You can precede the 5 with, if there's enough space, obviously, within the song. And yeah, it's a great it's a great it's an easy thing to find because the songs are everywhere, and it's a great way to study some jazz substitutions and jazz uh, uh you know uh seeing where the different modes can come in place, and how especially substitutions work. It's just, and because you're familiar with it. If you're not familiar, obviously you can just find standards, old jazz standards to play, but these songs are iconic and everybody knows them, and so you can really look and go, oh, I see how that stuff worked, and it starts to make sense, and then you can add it into something else that's not necessarily Christmas related. So, but it's still fun to learn. I'm doing that one. Chestnuts is just gonna be an instrumental, like that kind of thing, and I'm gonna do. We do "Walk Don't Run," right? And but in the middle of it, we add Sleigh Ride, the Ventures version of Sleigh Ride. So it's like, that's I'll stop there. But yeah, um, yeah. So that's going to be our next thing, and then we got this other gig that just came up at the last minute at Jane Pickens Theater down in Newport, Rhode Island. We're playing. Um, it's a beautiful old theater, and they still show movies there. So anyway, before the movie, about once or twice a year, sometimes more, we do um, play before the movie. Usually we do Jaws. They show Jaws every year, and then we play the um, right before the movie for about 45 minutes, 50 minutes, or something like that. And then we get off the stage really quick have to get the gear off in record time. They bring the screen down and then they show the movie. So this December we're gonna play in front of Pulp Fiction because I guess it's the 30th anniversary of the movie. So and it's got all the Surf Rider. Let's see there. Is the Shadows? I know there's a Shadows tune. Is that Shadows? I don't think that's Shadows. That's somebody else. I can never remember the names of these. The lively ones. Yes, I knew. I knew it was something else. Yeah. So I'm probably gonna. I usually just will come in before the movie set up. People will come in and we'll just do. Oh, the Pulp Fiction theme is Surf Rider. Oh, okay, that's what I pulled up. Interesting. So then we'll start off or end the set with that probably. Um, for that, it's we started off. That is dead, baby. You know what? I got to be honest. I'll confession. I've never seen the movie. Um, it's been on my list forever, and I've just never sat down and watched it. So because since we're gonna do it, I have it on my Netflix queue, and I've been meaning to sit down and watch the thing. And so since I have this opportunity to open for the movie, which we actually did, um, the same Pulp Fiction we opened for. Wow, opened for it sounds weird to say open for a movie, um, but playing in front of the movie, we did this movie a couple years ago. It was probably 3 years ago at this point. But anyway, so now I didn't have time to hang around and watch it last time. But this time, since I'm going to be in a theater, woman, what better way to experience it for the first time than in the theater? So I will definitely watch it. So yeah, I know that there's a bunch of surf tunes in that movie. Assignment for next week. Yeah, I'm gonna wait. The gig's not till December 12th, so I'm gonna wait a little bit, but I'll experience it there. Um, yeah, there's a couple other. I was like, wow, I can just pull it up and see. I know we do a bunch of stuff, a couple of things. I should say a bunch of stuff, but we do some things off of the soundtrack. Oh, here we go. Motion picture soundtrack. Surf Rider. Um, oh, okay, we only do one other one. Bustin' Surfboards. That's weird. Isn't they don't have the Chuck Berry tune? I think with they're dancing, where Uma Thurman and Travolta are dancing. Anyway, yeah, not on the list anyway. But yeah, surfboards. That's where Bustin' Surfboards. It just starts off with the drums and the sound. Is Mr. Lou on there? Not on this list, but it could just be like it's probably a bunch of tunes that never made the actual soundtrack. Um, yeah, yeah, Mr. Lou, however you spell it. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Here's the full list. Yeah, Bustin' Surfboards. Um, yeah, you never can tell. That was the Chuck Berry tune. But anyway, it's just that beat. Boom, bop, bop. Right, it just starts off like that. That's an easy. A lot of those surf tunes are fairly easy. Um, yeah, we'll do that probably Perfidia, even though it's not in the. Those are the only two we do that are in the movie. But our Shadows, the Shadows Apache. Right. All that stuff is fun. And we do an obscure Ventures tune called right after that. We usually go into it as Running Wild. Why can't I not think about this? This is what happens when you don't play for a couple weeks. You start um, forgetting everything. Way up there. Yeah, it's a pretty fun song to play. Um, the surf stuff's cool, especially to play the sound of it. I mean, essentially the a lot of the tone that I get it. Yeah, it's rockabilly, but it's got a lot of that. It's when I especially turn the reverb on. But even without it, it's a lot of that edginess is very close to the surf rock stuff. It's the basement really. So if you listen to the Ventures, especially the live in Japan version album, that one it's all basements. It's just a wall of basements, and they're playing. They're not playing Gretches, but um, the amp makes up a lot of the tone. So it works really well. What am I looking for here? Oh, here. I wanted to see if I had any other. I don't think we pretty much we'll learn a whole bunch of tunes, and then we have over probably 100 or so tunes, if not more, um, that we've learned over the years. And every time, you're never going to play everything, so you'll just things will drop off the set list over a period of time, and then you instead of forgetting it, I would put it on an alt list. Um, and it will and then that way I don't forget that we know it, because otherwise I'll totally forget. Now that doesn't mean I'm going to remember it, We used to play Lord Mr. Ford by Jerry Reed. I don't remember how to play that. Inversed 3. Dumbed down rockabilly, surf music, but I love it. Kinda, yeah. I didn't say it, but yeah, kinda. I mean, it depends. I mean, some of the stuff is very simplistic, but some of it can get can get more complex. The more That's more of the ventures side of it. I would say, but I mean, not nothing crazy. At least for the old, the style of it. And it's I think surf's more modern surf bands are way more complex than the old bands because they're playing songs. They're taking pop songs from very all genres all through the you know every genre on the map and turning them into surf songs. Kind of the way rockabilly has done certain things. Um, the Surfer Jets, some might be familiar with them from Canada, I believe. They take a lot of stuff like uh, Heart of Glass, Blondie, and stuff, and turn it into a surf song. Not that that song's super complicated either, but it's more rhythmically complicated than anything else. Oh, I remember I wrote this set the other day. I left a gap. But yeah, I love it too. I love the sound. It's just got great energy. Valley High, yeah. I mean, that's kind of based on a another surf band that did it. Um, it's it's just that they have two guitars, so I had to figure out how to play it on one. But I forget what's the name. Oh, Lost Twang Marvels. I think they're out of Brazil. I think, or maybe not. I don't remember. But anyway, they have a bunch of tunes. That's probably that's my favorite of theirs personally. They also do a Siboney, which is an old instrumental. They make it a surf song. Um, so I kind of base that base it on there. I've changed it around. I listen to it. I'm not playing it exactly like them. I just kind of base the rhythm on what they're doing, and then it's surfy. It's got that more like Polynesian Hawaiian beat to it. Um, yeah, I just listen. That's how I usually will figure out songs. If I can't find if I can't find a version of if I can't find tablature or um, a transcription of the cover or original song or whatever that I'm trying to learn, I will listen to it and just find a fake book version of it. And then that's where the theory can come in handy because then you can listen to it and figure out, okay, well, that's what this chord is supposed to be right here at this bar. So what are they playing? There's only once you know that and you know a little bit about how things connect with theory, you can there's only so many places so many things it could possibly be. And so it narrows it down as opposed to trying to figure out the whole thing by ear. And it just helps speed up the process. Um, um, yeah, that one's a fun song to play. We had a bunch of some dynamics to it where the band will quiet down at the towards the end. And then right here, kick it up. Um, see if there was any other surf type stuff that we did that we've. Oh, well, Paperback Rider. Yeah, we turned that into a surf tune. That's us. No, I didn't get that from anybody else. Um, other than the idea of taking a Beatles song and turning it into a surf song from the Ventures, where they did it with "I Feel Fine." Um, so instead of just doing "I Feel Fine," I said, well, what other tune from the Beatles might work? And Paperback Writer um, seemed to be the best option. We also do a surf version. I mean, the beat's kind of already there, but "Be My Baby," the Ronettes. It's fun. Drench it in reverb, turn the delay on, pop, 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 pop. Get a whole thing going. I actually got to try that now that I mentioned that. I usually turn the reverb on, but I don't. It's slow enough. I think I could turn the longer delay setting, like the sleepwalk type, pop, 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 pop. Maybe not that extreme, but um, for that song, just to fill out some space. That's the other thing too. When you're playing um, when you got one guitar, um, you got to fill in space. And so when you're playing something slow, that's where reverb, delay, and all that stuff can really save you. Any Trashmen? No, don't do any Trashmen. No. Wait a minute. Definitely, yeah, no. Nope. Nope. But I did. We do. We were gonna do Malaguena, but I never learned it. So we did. So we do Tico Tico instead, which is right. Oops. That's a fun song. And we have this little back and forth between the drums, um, where the drums will go into a little breakdown, and I'll call and response. That's what I'm trying to say. Up, 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 up. And I think it's on that live thing that's on YouTube. Um, but that a version of that we're actually recording for the next album, so that will be the probably the only cover that's on there. Because I've been wanting to do that song for years, and just trying to do a recording of it seems appropriate, and it's public domain, at least as far as I know. I thought Oh by Jingo was public domain, and I found out it wasn't. Yeah, so that'll be a couple new videos coming out soon. Oh, we do Penetration by the Pyramids too. That's the other surf tune we do. I knew we had a surf set, but I couldn't remember. I couldn't find the original. I couldn't find that set list. We did a Blue Moon by the Ventures, which is very similar to all of the other tunes that they have. Um, that's Presidia. Yeah, so it's very similar. It's either a 1-3-1-3-2-5 or a 1-6-2-5 or something like that. And it's just trying to play those songs in one night. They can get twisted in your head. Um, and there's the same beat, same feel. A lot of the times the same key. Um, and they modulate usually um, up a key. Usually keys will modulate up a half step. Their tunes would modulate up um, a whole step. And but they wouldn't have any transitional chords in between in the key change. It would just jump to a key change. Um, I prefer it when there's something there, like oh, what am I doing here? My um sleeve is getting caught on the F hole here. Right. It's like, yeah, exactly. It's like Rockabilly. It's a one long song, right? um, so you add in little riffs and different intros and different rhythm patterns and different types of solos and change you know, substitute some different chords here or there or do a modulation or something like that. So not every single song ends like, you know, um, just to keep it interesting. But if you're playing a something in whatever key, we'll take B flat. Now right here, I could just go right into B if I wanted to. Right? You just go up, very obvious. Or you could do something like that. And there's a little bit of a transition. Um, from So you're just doing the minor third of B flat to the sharp 5 of B flat, and that becomes the 5 of the next key. So that's an easy way to do it. Then you could have something if you're in F, a lead in, yeah. Oops, wrong thing. Not here. There it is. Yeah, so here. Going into a bridge. Right into the next key, dramatically. Um, because the A flat minor leading in becomes the 5, but it's not the dominant 5. It's still staying on the A flat minor, so we're still implying that we're in F as a minor. Minor 9, the B flat's still in there and all of that, and it's a tritone of the 6 and blah blah blah. And then you go right to a D flat. So now that's where the real transitioning is really happening. And you lead right into the next key. And the lead in, voice leading, we talked a little bit about that last week. And that's where, it can make it interesting instead of just jumping right to it. I mean, sometimes it works. You want to do that, and it definitely adds a punch. So if you're writing your own song, or if you're playing a song that seems like it's nothing wrong with taking a song that already exists, and it's it's fine, but it's just you want to maybe extend the song, make it a little longer, or it's just a little dull. It seems like something else. It needs something else. Don't forget about modulation. Change the key, and that will change the whole sound. And you can go up a whole step, half step. I like half steps personally, but you can go up. You can do whatever you want. Obviously, you can do circle of fifths trick and all that kind of thing. That's another easy way to do it. Um, like oh, what's this? I walk the line, up and up and up. Any rockabilly songs with guitar distortion that exist? I don't know. Well, there's plenty of psychobilly stuff that does. Um, um, well, some of the early, like Ike Turner and oh wow, Johnny Burnett, the Johnny Burnett, Link Ray, yeah, just Rumble. Um, and those were before distortion pedals. So the Johnny Burnett trio stuff probably is the closest as far as old school original rockabilly that you could get, because they didn't have distortion pedals back then. So what you would do is either crank the amplifier or loosen one of the tubes in the back, one of the preamp tubes, or um, and it would just break up a little faster. And that's what, I guess, the guy, I can't remember the guy's name, the guitar player from the Johnny Burnett trio that somehow has 4 people on the recording, but it's a trio anyway. Um, the he would just loosen one of the tubes in the back of the Fender amp, probably, that he had, because it's really all that was around back then. Wasn't too many options back then, and that's where you'd get that kind of sound going on, especially like what's the Train Kept a Rollin', their version of Train Kept a Rollin'. Oh, he spliced the speaker cone. Yeah, that's one way you could do it. I wouldn't recommend that, but um, yeah, that's probably the closest you'd get to old school rockabilly stuff with distortion. It was more like they were figuring it out, right? These guys were trying to figure out stuff and how to get more of saturation out of the amplifiers. Paul Burleson. Okay. Um, until later, until they came out with the pedals in the '60s, and Hendrix was one of the first, I think, that used it. The Beatles used it, like Day Tripper and stuff like that. And it was more of an overdrive, not really much distortion in the way that we think of it today. Um, Setzer's used it a couple of times, I'm sure. I know yeah, big time on like how when he covered Houses Rockin'. Yeah, they had no other way to get the sound back then. Um, the Choo Choo Hotfish album, the Stray Cats, there's a lot of distortion. That first song, Elvis on Velvet, it has a lot of distortion. So I don't know if that's really a rockabilly tune, but sort of, kind of. Um, yeah, the problem with distortion with these hollow bodies is that it it'll feed back very quickly. Um, so using a tube screamer or a, you know, more getting saturation and sustain than anything else, but that will work, and it kind of gives you that sound, other than turning your cranking your amp up to 10 or whatever. Um, the other thing is when you play with hollow bodies, a lot of most amplifiers are open back, and that causes even more problems with distortion and not distortion, more problems with feedback. So the nice thing about these basements is that they're closed back. So you don't get as much the sound doesn't go out as much. It's more compressed into one cab, and it gets pushed in one direction. So the downside is that these amplifiers are very one directional. If you're behind it, you can't really hear, especially if you're playing drums. That's why drummers usually um, will come, always, I wouldn't say complain, but they'll use, I can't really hear you, unless I mic the amplifier, even though the amplifier is incredibly loud out front. So I usually put the amp behind the drummer and angle it a little bit so they can hear it, because they're extremely directional, especially once you're behind a kit and you're playing, that just goes away. Um, so, but it helps these guys. It helps the hollow bodies from feeding back, and it still will. It still will feed back and go right up to the amplifier and get a nice feedback sound. But it's more about tube saturation and anything than distortion for rockabilly. So, um, unless you play with a telly or something, I guess you can get away with it a little more. Um, cool. Um, yeah. So, how long have we been going? About 2 hours. That's usually about what I like to kind of call it here. But yeah, I got the new videos coming up soon. Been under the weather, so now that I've got this starting to feel a little better, and got the backing tracks done for the new video. Um, and we should have another Burleson DVD. Is there a first name? Trying to look it up. Thanks. Thanks, Joel. Appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah, if there's a first name, Burleson DVD, I'll look it up. Yeah, sure. Paul. Paul. Okay, let me oh, wait. You said that earlier. Yeah. I'm still not 100%. I'm still not 100%. I didn't even realize that. I didn't realize he had one. Wow. Cool. Rebel Riffs. Okay. I will take a look and see if I can find it. Thanks. Thanks, Glenn. Appreciate it. Rebel Riffs is the name of the publisher. Cool. Awesome. I will take a look at that and see if I can find one of those. And yeah, always good to have any, you know, forever learner, as I say. I keep learning new techniques, new styles, new riffs, new licks. Alrighty. Well, thank you guys again. I appreciate you guys for hanging out here on the live stream, and we'll have the new videos hopefully up next week. I'll definitely have the one up, the wireless monitor, but I don't want that to just be the only thing out there. So we'll have that's new. So we'll have the Rockabilly 2-beat riffs and more on the way. Until next time, thank you guys again. I appreciate it. Have a good one, and we'll see you next week at the same time, 4 o'clock on Saturday. Take care, everyone.